Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today I'm going to be doing a brief comparison between Last Bastion and Ghost Stories. Last Bastion just now is coming out, and it is a reworking of Ghost Stories that came out approximately 10 years ago. They're both cooperative games in which you are defending, in this case a village, in this case a castle, from invading forces, and the players are going to be working together, utilizing their powers and also the powers of their towns in order to triumph and defeat the evil approaching. So, again, I'm going to be showing you a few different differences here just to give you an idea of what it's like to play one versus the other. Especially useful, I hope, if you are already familiar with Ghost Stories, to see what this might be like for you. I'll be covering player powers, board powers, and a few other differences such as the solitaire mode, the game length, turn structure, the filled board penalty, and the cursed die, and the differences there. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first thing I want to point out is that in the new edition, the player boards, and therefore their colors, are not associated to the characters that they are actually playing. In the original game, you would have a board that was green, and the power associated with that board was always green, and these are double-sided. And so you would play, if this was your board, this would be your character piece. Over here, if you have the green board, you can decide to use any of these characters here, which means you get the miniature that matches that character. And so you have all of these different miniatures, much more detailed than the original printing of the game. So there you go. Let's move those out of the way, and let me show you the different powers. And again, these are simply colors with a penalty, which I'll come back to the penalty, but for now, pretty much you can ignore these. We're going to look at the characters up here. So we've got this board and this board here are the same. You get re-rolls on both the regular fight dice as well as the cursed die. On the other side of this one, you have a power that lets you roll the fourth great die, and you never roll the cursed die. Over here, it's similar. You roll the great die, and you ignore leaving effects that are a penalty. So again, sort of the same thing. Next up, we've got this character that does both the fighting ability and appealing the town for help ability. They can do both instead of just one. That's the same thing. And then the next one over here lets you do 2 fights or 2 appeals. That's not a thing in the new game. They removed that power. Now, next up, this is the same. Every turn you get any one token of your color, of whatever choice you want, of your color. So that's the same. And then on the other side of this, you have the enfeeblement mantra there, which is the same as this token. You put that on a monster out there, you weaken it by 1 strength, making it easier to kill. So that's the same. Next up after that, we've got this character who has the same symbol, and that means you get to move someone else, is what this means, on your turn. That's the same here, but they've actually gone ahead and combined the power on the front of this board with the power on the back, which allowed you to move twice. Well, with this power, you have an extra move. You can use it on yourself or someone else. So it's basically both the front and the back of this combined. That's how that works. And that's it for those. There's still 2 more here. We've got this one that can fight 2 characters no matter where they're standing on the board, so adjacency no longer matters. And then lastly, this one that can choose to give up their move and remove one of those Grasp of Evil tokens, which are very powerful. So that's it for the characters. Here we're going to be taking a look at the board powers. First thing you'll notice is the new tiles are a little bit bigger, which means the entire board is going to be quite a bit bigger. Each player has 2 boards in front of them for one thing, and then all of these tiles will make a bigger square in the center of the table. And here I'm showing you the dice as well. The new dice are larger, they are engraved, they are colorblind friendly, and these original dice are none of those things. I will say, I know that they made newer dice that had engravings on them and symbols on them, but that is not in my printing of the game. That's possibly in some of the newer printings of Ghost Stories. I'm not sure if that was ever included. But let's go ahead and go through these powers. So both of these are the same. You roll 2 of these dice. You take the matching colors as tokens to fight off the baddies. Next up, These two are basically the same. You give up 1 life here, 1 chi there, and get rid of a baddie or a ghost on the board. These two are the same. You are going to be putting a token on there and weakening all the monsters of that color by 1. Over here, you are using this 3D piece and hanging a banner from it, which features a color, and it does the same function. Next up, we've got this one, which is slightly different. The original let you move 1 ghost and 1 of the Taoists. The new one lets you move 2 of the monsters to new locations as a way to delay things or have powerful combinations be triggered. Next up, we've got here, this tile gave you 2 Buddha figures. You would go there, claim 1, and on an upcoming turn, if you were ended up facing an empty spot, you could put the Buddha there, and then any ghost that would show up there would instantly be slayed. So that's what they did. Really nice Buddha figurines. This one has a single mine cart. When you take it, you immediately put it on your board in an empty space. It doesn't matter where this is. This goes on your board, and it has the same effect. When a monster would show up there, it explodes. This goes back over here, just like the Buddhas would go back over here. So this is only 1, but it's faster. It happens immediately. Here you have possibly 2, but they are slower. You need to wait till your next turn to deposit it, and you have to be somewhere specific to play it and put it into effect. So there you go for those. Next up, we've got this one, which is sort of similar. This one lets you remove 2 of these Grasp of Evil tokens. These are going to be what's blocking down the board and causing havoc. Over here, you get to remove 1 tile being haunted. So that means flipping 1 of these tiles back to its normal side. And on this side, it's haunted. On this side, it is not. And then you'd have to bring a ghost into play for that as a penalty. Over here, there's a little less punishing, but these things do show up all over the place. Before, the figures, which are these haunting figures here, they would show up just on tiles on the board. Now, these can show up on your player powers and cancel them. They can show up on monsters and be removed from it. They can show up on all sorts of places. So this lets you get rid of 2. Next up, we've got this power here, which is either give a player 1 token of their choice or bring someone back to life. This has actually been it's sort of a combination of these 2 tiles a bit. This tile below gave you 1 life back, any 1 token, and then you draw a ghost. The top one brings someone who's dead back with 2 chi, but then you roll the curse die. This one doesn't have any of that rolling. You bring someone back, though they can only come back once, and they lose their player power. Or you give someone, including yourself, 1 of the colored tokens. So much simpler than all of this activity going on over here. And that's sort of the main push here, is making things simpler. Next up, we've got some things that don't really cross over. So this one, for example, lets you push back the haunting figures to delay them showing up on the board in haunting locations. Over here, and that power, by the way, is sort of done by this. This pulls a lot of different abilities into 1 tile. You kind of do the same thing by simply removing them, and it kind of behaves like pushing them back. And then this one over here gives you a net. This little net is going to be placed on 1 of the baddies, on 1 of their symbols, and it cancels that symbol activating while this is on it. And then lastly, we've got this one that simply gives you 1 life back and lets you move somebody 1 step, including yourself if you so choose. Let me talk briefly about the solitaire mode and the game length. The new deck of baddies is a little bit smaller than the original deck. When you are playing solitaire, you remove, in the original game, 5 cards per missing player. So that's 15 gone. In the new one, you remove 4 cards per missing player. That's 12 cards gone. That means when both decks are built for a solitaire game mode, you are playing against 41 cards over here, 39 over here, basically the same. Okay, so the difficulty there isn't necessarily much lower on this end. There's another thing that is missing in solitaire mode from the new one, and that is these tokens here. You see, when you play solitaire mode in the original game, you still put out all 4 boards with 4 powers. And 1 is yours, let's say that's mine, but the other 3 powers you can appeal to by cashing in 1 of these tokens. On your turn, you can cash in 1 of these, and on that turn, maybe I can move twice. Or maybe I can appeal to a village tile 2 times in a row, the same one. And then this goes to the center of the board. I have 3 of them. When they're gone, then, or whenever I want to, really, if I end my turn in the center of the board, I'm going to claim these at the end of that turn. There is no such thing in the new one. In fact, you don't have 4 powers around the table. You have your power, and that's it. Any penalties that the other 3 boards would suffer, you suffer. Just like in the original game, but there is nothing else to help you along the way. So you've got just your power and a slightly smaller deck to deal with. One other thing that is slightly different is the turn structure. In the original game, on your turn, you do some bad things. You check your board. You are then going to draw a new baddie if the board is not filled. And then you move, optionally, and you fight or appeal to a tile. The new game has largely the same structure, except the move and the fight/appeal is in whatever order you want to. So you can fight first, then move. You can appeal to a tile, then move, or you can move first, then do one of those things. So that's a little bit more forgiving. If you are already where you want to be, you can do whatever you intended to do, and then possibly move to support someone else, or move to the center of the board where your mobility is going to be great because you can get to any tile on your upcoming turn. So that is a little bit more friendly, a little bit more forgiving. One other thing that is different is the penalty if that board is filled. In the original game, the penalty is the same. If the board is filled, that board loses 1 life, 1 chi. The new one has these symbols across the bottom that are tied to the different colors. And if your board is filled, then instead you might lose 1 life. That's the power here, or the penalty on the red board. But over here, if the board is filled, you roll the black die, or you might burn the bottom card of the deck, giving you less time to deal with the main baddie. Or you might lose your movement. Lay down. Your next movement is simply standing up. You don't get to move that turn. So these are a little bit different, and they add, I guess, a little bit of a forgiving nature to it. You know, for example, losing your movement could be catastrophic, but is usually not as bad as losing 1 of your 3 starting life, though you could have more. And that's another thing that is slightly different in the new game. Your life and your call to arms tokens, which are the same thing as the yin-yang in the original game, those are limited to 1. You can have 1. Your amount of life you can have is limited to whatever you have at the beginning. That's, again, the original game. In the new one, you can have as many call to arms tokens as you gather. Your life has no upper limit. If you keep making life tokens, you can take them. So that, again, is a little bit more forgiving. Finally, I'm going to compare the 2 black dice here. These are horrible, and they are dreaded weapons of the game to use against you. So let's take a look at them, all right? The original die here has 2 blank faces there and there. The new one only has 1 blank face. But generally, the things that happen on the original die are worse. So, we've got some things that are the same. This face and this face are the same. Lose 1 chi, lose 1 life. That's the same. You have here draw a new baddie, which you have over here on this face. Draw a new card and put it into play. The other faces, though, well, this one is also the same. This one is haunt a tile and put out a grasp of evil token on on a board tile. But the other ones, so that leaves us over here with 2 faces I haven't talked about, basically. And that is a blank, another blank, right? So out of 2. And then this face, that means you give up all of your support tokens. On this die, there's only 1 blank, but the other 2 faces are give up a single round token. Could be a support token, could be a call to arms. And then this one, which is lose 1 life and lose 1 round token. So you're more likely to be penalized on the new die, but that penalty is also less likely to be completely crippling. This face is extremely bad, especially if you've been able to hoard a lot of these tokens, because you are suddenly reset completely back to 0, whereas over here, no matter which of these 2 faces comes up, you lose 1 of them, possibly coupled with losing 1 life. So there you go. It's still a terrible weapon, but now you're more likely to have something bad happen. That bad thing is also more likely to not be as swingy as in the original game. So there you go, everybody. That's basically it. Again, we were taking a look here at Ghost Stories being compared to the new Last Bastion, which is coming out very soon. Let's put that out there like that. Give you a look at that crazy artwork. I hope this was informational for you, especially, again, if you are a fan of Ghost Stories. I definitely think both games are spectacular. You do like the theme in the original Ghost Stories a little bit more. It's a little more distinct. But if you've never played it, and this is about to become available, I would certainly recommend that you pick it up and give it a try. Both games are still very, very difficult, though I do think the original scales a little better down to 1 player, 2 players than the new one. This is going to get more punishing, it seems, at the lower player counts. All right, so that's going to be it for me. Thanks, everybody, for checking this out. I am Z Garcia. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.